Talking to the students and professors here at the university, having a discussion with them about how we can fast-track the innovations which we develop on the race car and get them onto street cars faster and faster to really make a difference.
It's a pleasure to be here, hopefully to give you a little bit of insight of the connection between the technology that's developed within the automotive industry and the racing that we do, represented by some of those cars which you saw outside, including the car that I race. And I'm convinced that climate change is the single greatest challenge that our generation faces. We have got to do something rapidly about the global increase in temperature. There's a clear link between the beginning of the Industrial Revolution and the average temperature of our planet. And what we've seen from the analysis of this data is that global average temperatures are linked and can be statistically correlated to the increase in growth of carbon dioxide emissions. Over the last 10 years, it's as if the planet's developing asthma, because this ice sheet every year just doesn't grow as big as it did the year before. And so, although there is still a lot of debate about whether climate change is happening, whether climate change is linked to concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the scientific consensus internationally is absolutely clear. And so, really we have to ask ourselves, what are the key challenges in doing something about this rapidly enough to ensure that we don't tip over that 2-degree average temperature increase, which is going to lead to, frankly, disaster. And when you look at the frankly fantastic progress that the car industry has made, recognizing this challenge, this graph going back to 1997, you can see for new cars introduced in those years, average carbon dioxide emissions, grams per kilometre, a very significant reduction. But unfortunately, that reduction is not going to get to zero fast enough unless there are step changes in technology. The promise of electric vehicles, of course, is that providing the electricity is generated from a low-carbon source, and that's a big challenge there for governments internationally, more than 90% of the efficiency of that energy conversion can be achieved. They're not just technology challenges in terms of the engineering problems, they're also challenges in terms of convincing the buying public to overcome concerns that they may have, for example, range anxiety of current technology, but also investing in the infrastructure that's going to be required by governments to make these new types of vehicles viable. Beyond 2020, which is where the European Union has set current limits for CO2 emissions for cars, you can see that there is a transition from current technology, predominantly improvements to the internal combustion engine, through mild hybrids, through to all-electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cells, with an expectation that round about 2030, there will be the introduction of legislation in Europe which will mandate such a low limit for CO2 emissions that current internal combustion engines will just not be able to meet it. This presents challenges in terms of really 3 types of technology jumps, which we don't have at present. Firstly, around the energy storage, the real challenge around the chemistry and metallurgy of batteries, the breakthrough that's going to be required in terms of the development of the infrastructure through to the distribution of electricity, and then the promise of hydrogen fuel cells and the challenges around distribution. Yeah, our number one thing is to race to win. It's all about getting out there and going as fast as possible to win the race. But to use that mission to accelerate the development of green technologies and to develop the excitement of going green, and to do that through the development of technologies and through their promotion. And the whole thinking behind the team is about using this ethos, if you like, of green racing as the fundamental reason for going racing. We were the first team to race a bioethanol-fueled car in a major motor race. We were the first team to put a bioethanol-fueled car on pole and the first team to win. And what we learned from doing that was that what people got really interested in the science and the technology was the winning. They really weren't interested if you were like making up the numbers. Over the last 4 years, we focused on using second generation bioethanol fuel, a cellulosic-based process across a range of different race cars. Most latterly, the green car you probably saw outside, the V10 Lola Judd. And in doing that, I think learning quite a lot about the challenges which are involved in all types of technology development around green racing. The challenges that you're faced in terms of dealing with a new technology and persuading the regulators that such a technology can be used for racing. You're developing with the race regulators rules which allow you to compete effectively whilst developing this new technology. In the particular case of bioethanol, you have the challenge in terms of the energy density, which gives you some advantages and some disadvantages against gasoline. From a promotional point of view, this point about making racing green, cool and exciting was when we all voted fourth best racing car by Autosport magazine in 2007. For me, really, it underpins the whole thing. This championship where the car that goes furthest, fastest, with the least impact on the environment, using the least amount of fuel, really providing a mechanism whereby teams can compete, working with our partners, whether it's Michelin in terms of the tyres. There's some really interesting challenges which are going to face the tyre manufacturers as hybrids come in and you have some new options in terms of the chassis dynamics. Torque steer with in-hub electric motors is going to become much more important than it is at the moment, which is going to provide opportunities and challenges, for example, for firms like Michelin. For specialist manufacturers like Lola, who just make racing chassis, developing a racing chassis which can take a hybrid engine or possibly in the future an all-electric power system, as well as a diesel or bioethanol fuel, major challenge for them. And so you're seeing a big shift taking place within the global car industry, which I think is going to provide an acceleration in innovation. And I don't think it's going to be too long before we're going to see the first all-electric race cars come to serious international racing. I can't wait to see the time when we have the battery capacity to enable us to actually race at Le Mans with an all-electric vehicle. Because I think the chassis of a car that has four-wheel drive, electric motors in each hub will be an absolute dream to race.